While challenges persist from rising costs, labor constraints, the sector presents attractive long-term valuations through value addition, product diversification, sustainable practices, and expansion into new export markets.
So we are hopeful that this ban will be lifted very shortly, so that the companies will move forward in that direction.
Creating a brand is a must for the long-term survival.
The wage hike will definitely have an impact on the profitability and the cost.
I don't see a threat. I see an opportunity for Sri Lankan companies to invest in Kenya.
Today we are exploring Sri Lankan plantation sector, its opportunities, challenges, competitiveness, and the road ahead. Before we begin, a brief overview of Sri Lankan plantation sector. The sector contributed around 8.5 to the national GDP as of second quarter of 2025, with showing 2% of year-over-year growth, underscoring its continued relevance to the economic growth. Employing over 30% of the population, the plantation sector remains as a key driver of rural livelihood and export earnings. Core crops, tea, rubber, coconut, and palm oil continue to anchor the sector, with Sri Lanka ranked as the third highest global tea exporter, generating over USD 1.5 in export earning in 2024. While challenges persist from rising costs, labor constraints, the sector presents attractive long-term valuations through value addition, product diversification, sustainable practices, and expansion into new export markets. To give more insight into this plantation sector discussion, joining me today are two esteemed industry experts. With a wealth of leadership, experience, and deep-rooted passion for plantation sector, we continue to drive the excellence and sustainability in tea and rubber industries. Mr. Sunil Poliat currently holds the position of Managing Director, Lankan Tea and Rubber Plantation Private Limited, Managing Agent of Kottagara Plantations PLC and Agarapatra Plantations PLC. Welcome, Mr. Sunil Poliadda. We are really proud to have you here. Next, blending heritage with passion and hope, Mr. Lushantha De Silva, Chairman and Managing Director of Empire Teas Group, comprising Empire Tea Private Limited, Empire Brand Private Limited, Empire Kenya Private Limited, and the Tea Avenue. We welcome you, Mr. Lushant, and thank you for being here with us today. To begin with, let's start by setting the stage for our listeners. To start with, Mr. Poliad, could you share how your career journey began and what key milestones or experiences have shaped you into the leader you are today?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. To start with, I must say I started my career as an assistant superintendent in a plantation, and that was soon after the nationalization took place, and the rhythm of the plantations was still on with the to the way how the agency houses manage. So I think I got a fair opportunity of getting to know how the agency houses work prior to nationalization. And of course, in my journey, I went through the nationalized era, and thereafter in the privatization process, which took place in 1992, that was initially the privatization of the management of plantations, and the real privatization by the sale of shares took place in 96. So in my journey, I had the experience of having a plantation experience in the three types of management we have had, the administration we have had. When I joined John Keel's Holdings into their corporate management, when they were managing three plantations, that's Kegol, Maskeli and Namanukula, in the year 1998. And as you know, John Keel's management style is quite different. And I had the opportunity of learning that till I moved on to the other companies. And also in between, I had the opportunity, I would say, holding key positions in the associations like the Planters Association, which is the umbrella body for all the regional plantation companies. And also with that, working with the Employers Federation of Ceylon, where we negotiate wages, where all worker related or employee related issues. And from there, with that, of course, I held position in the Colombo Rubber Traders Association and Colombo Tea Traders Association. So where I associated with my colleagues in the industry quite closely, and I happened to become the first producer chairman of the Colombo Rubber Traders Association. So that gave me a lot of courage and opportunity to learn the entire industry, and also to answer in short of your question, it's the passion one has in an industry and your commitment, not looking very much to the future but doing everything right when you have to do it.
So turning to you, Mr. Lishantan Silva. With nearly 35 years in the tea industry and your remarkable success in taking the Sri Lankan tea to the global market, would you tell us how your journey in the tea trade began and what key experiences or decisions guided you to where you are today?
Thank you for inviting me again. Yeah, my career started in 1986, where I joined James Finlay's, uh, which was like a learning school for me. I was there for about 3 years, learned the grading, tasting, and export, basically value addition of teas. From there onwards, I left after about 3 years, then joined two other companies uh, where I worked for total of about 10 years doing the similar functions. Then in year 2000, uh, I thought to venture out. Pretty bold move at the time, no backing at all. But yeah, just as probably Suril mentioned, three things which was in my system all like for the last 25 years: being consistent, passionate, and dedicated. So those were the three things which I probably learned. And for me, it was structure in place to learn. Learning on the job was thing. Uh, in the export trade, you talk to banks. At the initial stages, banks don't give us facilities, loans, or whatever. Working with them, having the challenges, yeah. So made all of us tough, but then today I can look back, can be happy about it.
So building on that, let's dive into the plantation sector. So Mr. Polyad, how would you describe the current state of Sri Lankan plantation sector, particularly across tea, rubber, coconut and palm oil?
Plantation in Sri Lanka has a history of 150 years. And as I mentioned before, this has gone through many changes in the past 30 to 40 years. Before that, out of the 150 years, about 120 years had been consistent, and it had been a natural growth because it was in the private hands. So thereafter, with this nationalization, privatization again, has given the plantations a different twist and a different outlook. So the concepts in the private sector management, especially the agency houses, that was very consistent and they were very focused because they started off the plantations and they were very focused as a business. State management was a different era and a different focus. At one time, it was like filling up, it was an employment bureau, where a lot of people were employed without a real basis. And the outlook and the people who worked, some were influenced with politics, and it became a different style of management. And now, again, it has been privatized, but still it's on a management lease. The companies hold leasehold rights of these lands. So still the government has quite a say. And as you know, politically, any party coming in has has a different way and a different outlook, different policy. So the plantations have at all times being under severe threat because of these issues. And also, if you look at the social angle of it, if you take those days, planting per se was the best job in the mercantile sector. But with the opening of so many other industries, sectors, and even in the districts in the plantations, the outlook and the focus has changed now. So the people have so much of opportunity outside. If you take the plantation areas, the plantation was the place to work. But today, if you get garment industries and many more opportunities even for the youth to work. And also there's a social stigma that doing plantation work is not that great. So we are addressing all these issues, management, where the workers are concerned, and maybe the political situation. So in one way, if you talk, having gone through this journey and having gone through all this, passing all these hurdles, today we expect that there will be political stability and that we would also be able to address these issues logically, even the politicians to look at it logically and to take this industry forward. So I have great hope with, on the other hand, we are going through climate change. So plantations per se is an agribusiness. And as you say, there are so many crops and there is so much of opportunity for new crops. So we are looking at the private sector today is looking at all those things because the biggest asset we have and the biggest bank we have is the land base. So it's how you make use of this land. So all these opportunities are there and the trade the world is developing. So we have to bring all this technology, we have to bring all this thinking into the plantation, even in the management. And so I feel that the future of the plantations, because of this reason, and if we manage, and I'm confident the companies who manage are very well focused and they're committed to this industry, and most of them have held these plantation companies from the time it was privatized in 1992. So that's a great assurance you have got that these companies have a passion to this industry. So with that in mind, I feel that there's a great opportunity for the plantations in Sri Lanka.
So, following to that, what are the biggest challenges the plantation sector face today, especially in terms of rising input cost, labor issues, and the policy change?
Yeah, I'll take the last one first. The policy changes. We have had, with this what I meant earlier, with the change of governments and change of policy, we have had a lot of ad hoc decisions being taken, which affected the plantations in a big scale. The most recent ones, I would say, banning of chemicals, banning of commercial artificial fertilizer, trying to be organic, the whole country overnight. Those were very ad hoc decisions taken, I don't know for whatever reason. So today, with the current government, I personally feel there will be stability. Already we have seen it. So this stability will continue. That's our greatest hope. And the other things are, of course, connected. As I told you, the climate change, no one can stop. But we have to adapt to the climate change. That's why we look at a lot of crop diversification. And in the recent past, if you know, about, say, 6-7 years ago, oil palm became the third largest crop. And oil palm had never been a new crop to Sri Lanka. It started in the 60s, even during the privatized period in certain districts because the climate was right. So today with this climate change, oil palm has become a must in a commercial scale agriculture because the climatic condition, the rainfalls of those areas, mainly the rubber areas, doesn't permit to be grown rubber over and over again because as you know, rubber is you should need to have certain dry weather in the rubber to harvest, and that ability is not there. So now there again, this the stoppage of oil palm was a huge impact to the industry. And oil palm is also you need the least labor workers to run oil palm plantation. So once the privatization took place, the companies looked at all this and all only found this third crop scientifically suitable for this country. So now this ban has created a lot of issues, and now we are very hopeful. There has been, from what I know, a scientific study done, and it's almost confirmed that there is no impact as such environmentally because of planting of oil palm. So we are hopeful that this ban will be lifted very shortly, so that the companies will move forward in that direction. And compared to all three crops, considering the labor issues and all that, oil palm is a promising crop. The other issue I need to mention, the threats. The major issue is the out-migration of workers. There's a severe shortage of workers in the plantation companies. For example, today we have only 30% of the workforce we took over in 1992. So that's a great challenge, but always there are solutions to it, and all the companies are working towards finding solutions to this. Because if you take 1/3 comparison, our plantation, which we are doing about 100 million kilos over the years, have not come down drastically. It's about a 10% decline. So that means the companies have been at it. They are finding alternate ways of handling these issues. So now the fertilizer ban was lifted, fertilizer is back. As you know, the plants suffer for 6 months, 1 year to recover. It takes years and years thereafter. So all that the difficult periods are ending, and some have ended, and all the companies, as I told you, they are committed to this. So they want to look at other alternatives to keep the plantations moving, and we are also very conscious about the profits that the shareholders have to be expect. So all companies are working towards that, and I believe that the industry will flourish in the future as well.
Thank you so much for those insights. Now turning to you, Mr. Lushantha Silva. Let's talk about the export side of the story. So are we seeing a growth in Sri Lankan tea export over the past few years? And what are the main challenges the sector is currently facing?
So let me start from the challenges. So as Mr. Polyatha mentioned, it was the fertilizer issues in 22, 23, 24, which brought the production down. As a result, the exports also reduced. So, but however, happy to see growth in 24, 25. Like say in 2025, January to September, like Sri Lanka has exported about 198 million kilos against the production of 199 million kilos. But always there's about a 15 to 20 million coming from the following year. So that's the reason. So we are seeing growth in the exports, getting into new markets. Yes, I think future, as Mr. Suli mentioned, will be good for the industry.
So, and more broadly, how would you assess the current competitive position of Sri Lankan plantation export, including tea, rubber, coconut, and spices in the global market?
So I wouldn't know much to talk about rubber, but coconut, spices, and tea, like say our quality or our taste profiles are unique to the world. So that's why that we need to keep it for ourselves, like say Sri Lanka. If you look at cinnamon, so like we get the GI for cinnamon, black pepper, cardamom, whatever it is, and including tea. So we have 7 agroclimatic regions for tea. Each one is unique. So the plantation sector or the producing sector is doing a very good job looking after those. So if that the quality aspect is maintained, the challenge is for the exporters to harness value for those days, which is happening. Okay, adding on, I would say, like, say, we eventually will need to think of moving out of bulk exports, not fully, but creating more value for our teams. So that is the future, which I would say. And Sri Lanka need to create that niche market for us.
So now that we have looked into the competitiveness, let's touch on the cost dynamics. So Mr. Prashant, is Kenya a challenging competitor in terms of cost side pressures, and what measures Sri Lanka has taken to address these issues in tea exports?
Okay, Kenya, as we know, is the largest export to the world. They produce about almost 600, in Africa, they produce about 600 million kilos. Uh, Most of those teas were exported in bulk to countries, like say main markets of Kenya, Pakistan, Egypt, UK, Kazakhstan. So all those importing countries pack those teas in their respective countries. So what I see now is Kenya government, all the companies into exports have seen Sri Lanka, India, and they started to do their own value addition. So which and Kenya produces 90% or 95% CTCTs, like say it's cut, tear, and curl type of manufacturing. So which is not hugely a threat to Sri Lanka. Even us, there are 4 or 5 Sri Lankan companies who have established there. Okay, so the threat, probably I don't see a threat. I see an opportunity for Sri Lankan companies to invest in Kenya or other producing countries and have a benefit there. Uh, uh, as a concern, not a threat, as a concern, I would see is Kenyan companies are getting into production of black teas, or what we call it orthodox teas. Yes, in the future there may be a challenge, but not a threat.
Okay. So, Mr. Koliyad, coming back to the local industry perspective, how have fertilizer price fluctuations and subsidy schemes impacted the productivity across estates and smallholders?
Yeah, fertilizer prices, of course, skyrocketed at one time. I think even today it's way above what we spent on it some time back. But I would say, there are two aspects to it. One is the currency fluctuation, because all this fertilizer is imported, and simultaneously there is an advantage of the export price, which we need to admit. But overall, there has been an increase in the prices of fertilizer. So, I mean, everything goes up like that in the cost structure, not only fertilizer, maybe wages. I mean, it's a never ending thing. But we need to know how to handle this and balance it if, as long as we are in the business. So, I don't consider it is a difficult task, but it has a threat, and also we have to maximize the advantages to mitigate these things. So just because the fertilizer prices went up, I don't think any company has shut down or closed the operation, but every company has found alternate ways of handling it. And again, the use of fertilizer, there are more cost effective ways of handling fertilizer. It's just not fertilizer. So so the scientific view also has to be looked at. We have the national research organizations. They advise you on the fertilizer and the fertilizer mixtures, how you could have the mixtures, how we could select and get the optimum results of the fertilizer. So, and the application, there are new methods of application which we need to look at. Now, certain folio sprays, which is a part of fertilizer, today a lot of companies have invested, or they are doing the folio spraying with drones. So that means you will use less chemical, less workers, and those are the advantages we look at. We have to look at. I mean, if we are in this business, we have to look at all those issues to see positive ways of getting over the issues rather than being drowned in the issue. And I think there's world over technology is available. So, and that is how we should mitigate and move forward.
And more recently, how has the wage hike has affected the plantation sector profitability and sustainability?
Of course, the wage hike will definitely have an impact on the profitability and the bottom line and the cost. Well, we had the last revision of wages was in September 2024, when an announcement was made by the government giving an increase of 70%, right? Which we found is unaffordable. And if that happened, maybe the plantations would have, certain plantations wouldn't have been able to handle that type of cost. Because almost 60% of our cost structure is in these wages. So 60% goes up by 70%. I don't think any industry can survive. So that compelled the plantation companies to go in for litigation. And we had to challenge it, not for anything else, for the sake of the industry and maybe for the sake of the employees as well. So we went into litigation, and finally both parties, that's the workers or the trade unions and the management, ultimately came to a settlement that we will restrict it to a 35% increase and the balance 35% they could earn through productivity. So that had an impact, but also on the other hand, there's a huge, even with these wage increases, there's a huge number of out migration. Every wage increase, the component of the labor we had or the workers had reduced. It had never increased. So obviously, raising wages is not going to be the answer in the future, in my view. So if you look at the statistics, it is very obvious. So as you may know, there is again an announcement that wages may increase, but we are in discussion and we expect a positive outcome of it. And with the cost of living rising in this country, I don't think we could completely ignore these increases. And apart from that, the estate workers, if you say, they get a lot of other facilities as well. So, and there are a set of people who live inside the estate. So it's a total different environment from another industry. And I think this is the only industry which has it. So wages is an issue, cost is an issue, but I feel we are handling it in a way that we could manage it.
So thank you both of you. That give us a clear sense of challenges. Now let's move into the opportunity side of story. Mr. Lushanth Silla, what role value addition, product diversification, and branding play in improving export competitiveness?
Um, um, Branding is a must. I mean, like each of the our companies need to create a brand, whether it's a retail brand or a Horeca brand or a wellness. So creating a brand is a must for the long-term survival, and that we actually need to give the credit to a brand like a brand like Dilma, who taught us what a brand is and how to believe in a brand and move forward. So taking learning from that, like say each of us we need to work on it. It's not an easy job to do a handling a brand. Then along with apart from the branding, uh, earlier I mentioned that we should move out of bulk teas or reduce the bulk tea dependency. So there are a lot of value addition which we can do, packing for private label, packing for supermarket brands, that will increase the revenue which we will bring to the country. So, which in order to do that, you need to have a structure, right, like machinery, automation. A lot of expenditure needs to be done, investments need to be done. Looking at a longer term approach, like say it's not a 2 3 year, you make money, move out. No, it's a 10 to 15, 20 year approach you need to take. Uh, with that, definitely, I mean, like say, that's what we should do more to bring in more revenue to the country. Adding on, uh, so we have in the Sri Lanka tea board, like a lion logo symbol, which is like uh, to mention that teas are packed in Sri Lanka is particular minimum quality aspect of it. I believe that need to be promoted as a generic brand, which is not done. Money is there in the tea board, but for the last many years, it has never happened.
Okay, so what strategies should Sri Lanka adopt to capture higher market share in this emerging market destination? Also, could you share what new export destinations are currently being considered?
Uh, yeah, so if I just go back, say 70% or 60% of the volume is going into maybe 12 countries. That is predominantly, I would say, Turkey, Russia, Iraq, Libya, now China coming in, Chile coming in. So these are the traditional markets, and Sri Lanka market share is about 13% compared to Kenya's 30%. So, I mean, like just to put the numbers, there is a huge amount of opportunity which we have. So to capture that, I think from government level or EDB level, there need to be a focused approach to get contacts. Let's say, if you are looking at a Sri Lanka embassy in a particular country, they need to do the work. They need to do research. Nothing happens, unfortunately. So because otherwise, for us or each individual company to go and do, it's not possible. So most of the companies probably are doing is going for trade fairs in certain countries where they have done a little bit of research. They just hope for the best and go and visit. That's not the way that which we should. We should have a scientific, I mean, like more or less a thought out approach where we capture markets. And another thing I would say is exhibition participation. We as a country need to up our game compared to other smaller countries which is doing exhibitions. They are doing at a different level. So we just need to show that Sri Lanka is a bigger country than what we are.
So, Mr. Poliad, turning back to you, where do you see the greatest opportunities to improve productivity, efficiency, and resilience in Sri Lankan local plantation?
Yeah, the greatest opportunity I would spell out is making use of the new technology. That's the opportunity we have, and that's the direction that we should be moving on. So, because the technology has improved world over, and if you say, I don't think we are in the top end of using technology. So, there's a huge potential and opportunity to move forward with technology coupled with science. If these two come together and if we take that approach, I think we could do much better, and definitely most of the companies or management will be compelled to do it with the challenges we have. For example, that's what I told, when we the worker component reduced by 70%, it doesn't mean that the production reduced by 70%. So if you take harvesting in tea, mechanized harvesting is world over. Most of the countries do harvest with machines. But if we continue to have our sentiments in doing manual work, true, you cannot replace the manual plucking. That I do agree, and where Nusante is concerned, he'll agree. The quality you can't match. But there should be a huge skill of the worker to do that task. So we lack skill, although we train, and I told you about the social issues. So we expect, like giving new technology, giving new machines, or giving new equipment will encourage them also to come and work on the estates in the plantations, and their earning capacities will be much, much greater because a machine will give almost about 3-4 times of the manual output. So that's the direction we are going. So then we have been blessed with certain weather conditions in this country. So I don't think we can expect that luxury any longer. So we have to adjust, we have to study, we have to get statistics and see how we could. Sri Lanka is nothing new for, if I take one example as irrigation. 2000, 3000 years ago, irrigation started in Sri Lanka. But if you take certain commercial export crops, we don't use it to that extent, or we are just emerging into it. So that's the huge opportunity we have. It doesn't confine to the plantation per se in the field where the factories are concerned. And the techniques are much more advanced today. Most machines have replaced workers. So that is the direction we should go. And the next thing is, I would say, the economies of scale. If you take Sri Lanka, our costs are high because of the economies of scale. When another country we have one plantation as 10,000 acres, we are talking of less than 1,000 acres. But the workload is the same. So we have to have a new approach, new mindset, and be receptive to to change our mind and thinking to move forward, which each one is doing in a different way, but I believe that all are trying to reach the same goal. So that's the advantage and that's the potential we have to improve the plantation industry in Sri Lanka.
So finally, to wrap things up, sustainability is becoming a key theme globally. So, Mr. Rishanth Silva, looking ahead, how can plantation companies align with global demand trends while managing climate and sustainability risks?
Um, Climate risk, it's happening. So as Sunil mentioned, how we manage, like it's not an easy thing to manage. So, but we are blessed as a country. So I think most there are studies which is happening along with this climate changes which has happened, like T Research Institute uh, doing a lot of work, maybe not adequate, but then they have done a lot of work which is passed on to the regional plantation companies. But I think our main goal is where the 60% of smallholders uh, spread, not they are smallholders, whether they are educated adequately uh, with these present challenges is a question to be asked. So I think concentrated effort from the ministries, uh, provincial councils need to go. So educating them would help all the agricultural industries. I think that's where. So I think the new government has a plan. I mean, like I think first time, probably, if I'm not wrong, a government has set a target of 400 million kilos, uh, but they have to spell out how we are going to achieve it and spell it out to rest of the country as well. So, and like if it is 2030, what we are going to achieve in 26, 27, 28, etc. Yeah, so this need to be properly communicated and professionals engaged to achieve this. So if we produce 400, let's say if you produce 350 million kilos, because I think we, highest we produce about 340 something. So if we can produce 350, definitely we'll be able to achieve about 2.5 billion to $3 billion coming into as a revenue. So that's where very positive about the industry, and everyone needs to get together and work.
So, to conclude, what are your thoughts about the future of tea exports?
We in Sri Lanka, let's say, as a very small quantity to the world. So whatever we produce, we have this. If you maintaining quality is the main aspect of the product, which it's not only the responsibility of the plantation companies, all of us as exporters as well. So that will increase our value to the world because everyone in the tea industry comes to Sri Lanka, so they know Sri Lanka has the best tea. So we need to preserve that.
Thank you so much for that. And as a final thought, Mr. Polyad, how optimistic are you about the future of Sri Lankan plantation sector over the next decade? And what key priorities should the industry focus on to ensure long-term sustainability?
Yeah, I think I have mentioned everything what has to be done or what I think should be focused upon. One is, where the plantation companies are concerned, when the plantations were privatized, it was agreed that companies, this has to be run as an agribusiness and crop diversification is possible. When you say crop diversification, it has to be tagged to the climate change and That is why it was mentioned there. So this diversification came to a halt for the reasons I told you. So if diversification is one which is taking place, and it's a must for the plantations to be viable and to manage their businesses. Number two is the technology part, what I told. And because the technology is out there, even if you see in every aspect, rest of the countries practice those things, and they have been successful in doing it. So we have to change our mindset. That's also I said that we need to know we should be able to absorb the new technology, make use of it, and also the research and the scientific side to it. Research and science is a must. R&D, research and development, because you can development only through research. So I feel our research institutes are also going in that direction, and there's a lot of quality emphasis being done, as Lusanta said. So we as plantation producers have to meet those standards, and the equipment, technology, everything is out there. So it's a matter of us how fast we are going to take it on. And I'm from our side, I could say most of the companies have moved in that direction. They are already in that process. So it's a matter of time. Now, say we expect the fertilizer ban was lifted, and it took about 2 years to get over the impact. Now we are back there. So the diversification, once it is permitted, there's diversification is not only to crop, even to timber is a diversification. It's another commercial crop, you can say. So this diversification and the technology with the science moving in will be the future for the plantations.
So thank you, Mr. Lushantha Silva and Mr. Poliadha, for sharing such valuable insight today. It's been truly an enlightening discussion, covering both domestic realities and global opportunities for Sri Lankan plantation sector. That's all for today's episode. Until next time, stay tuned for more updates from Softlogic Stockbrokers.